Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this lovely Monday morning once again. I always have this privilege, but this week our listeners also have the privilege of spending the next 30, 40 minutes with my husband and me. Mordechai is here again, and we are sharing the spiritual meaning behind birth, a Kabbalistic perspective. This is really the first part in a two-part series. Next week, we're going to be talking about the other end. Today, we're talking about the enter door. Next week, we're talking about the exit door. We're going to talk about death. But this is a process, obviously, that all of us have experienced, right? We don't always, every episode doesn't always touch all of humanity, regardless of their background or where they're from or what they think or what their beliefs are. Quite literally, everyone on the planet has experienced being born, and therefore I'm not even sure why it took us so long to have an episode on it. We've also scheduled an upcoming episode on parenting, so you can look forward to that as well. But what we want to understand this week is the spiritual process. We're not really looking at the incident of birth, although we may get to talk about that as well. But birth is simply a part of the soul's journey. And there is a lot of books, a lot of classes, a lot around fertility, conception, pregnancy. There's a whole thing about postpartum, different things that happen to people. So it definitely serves us to have a nice, lengthy discussion about it. But the reason we're doing it this week is because this week's energy is really talking about conception of all kinds. And I want to make sure it's clear. It's not simply conception about birth. It's really the genesis, the conception of all things, all processes, all beginnings. The wisdom, the Kabbalists teach that there is a certain, I'm going to call it science around conceiving. Whenever you want to start something new in your life, there is a way to go about it that is supported, that is blessed, that comes with mercy and divine guidance, or you'll feel everything is divinely guided, but there's certain ways to do things so that you'll feel that divine guidance. And there is ways to begin things that are bumpier, are going to be a little bit more arduous, a little bit more challenging. The result will be the same, but believe it or not, our consciousness, our choices, and our actions can influence the way that process unfolds. And that's why we're talking about this week the idea of being born. But a chocolate cake has a birth process, right? A tree, a sunset. So it's really for all of us to look at this week the genesis of the things in our lives, the seed level. And therefore, we're going to use the opportunity and the support of the universe this week to talk about birth. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where we aim to provide our listeners with the most powerful and practical tools to navigate the coming 7 days. We do that by gleaning through the wisdom of Kabbalah and handpicking the most practical and most relevant and meaningful, not only ideas, but also experiences that we've had, whether personally or through guiding students over the years. And the episode offers timeless wisdom you can use not only this week, but anytime. And I think that this is no different. We're not talking, well, you may get some guidance today on how to prepare to have a child. We're talking about so much more than that. And there's obviously a reason that birth is heralded as such a significant moment in one's life. Or again, I want to talk more about being born first than about birthing someone. The soul is on a constantly moving journey. The Kabbalists call it a wheel. It's always turning. The wheel of the soul is always turning. Even when a person feels stuck in a pattern, that wheel continues to move. Birth marks the beginning of a new chapter in the journey of the soul. The Kabbalists teach that when a person is born is a direct result of what they accomplished or didn't accomplish in a previous lifetime. And I'm going to repeat that again because that's maybe the most important thing to remember, because it actually informs any kind of thing you're trying to birth, whether it's a person or a project or a home or anything else. The thing that influences a person's birth, so if you're listening now, the what influenced your birth, when, how, where, who, is most directly influenced by your most recent lifetime and what you were able to accomplish or what you were not able to accomplish. And I'll give you a really simple example. If you, for whatever reason, in whatever you accomplished or didn't accomplish in a previous lifetime, made it clear that your soul really needs to focus on surrendering control, letting go, not being in charge, not telling people what to do, not driving the bus, but being a passenger, not being the coach, but being a team player. One of the signs you might want to be born as is Scorpio, right? Scorpios are given a gift, a talent, a knack, if you want to call it, for being in charge. They desire to control. An unspiritual Scorpio will go to very extreme measures to maintain control. But in order for them to really experience joy and fulfillment in all of the potential of their life's possibilities, their real work is to surrender control. So you would be, if your soul decided that's the work it wants to do in a particular lifetime, it would choose to be born in the month of Scorpio, which again varies from year to year. It's usually third week of October to third week of November, approximately. So your parents would need to conceive you in approximately the month of February. Valentine's Day is a popular day to be conceived if you're going to be a Scorpio. And let's say, now I'm talking to the parents of said soul. Let's say that the parents, one of them was on a business trip during that month. And so that soul missed the window to be born, to be conceived. So the parents might have to wait another year to conceive that child. And that's a really powerful example, in my opinion, because there are a lot of people who these days struggle with infertility or, different challenges around bringing kids to the world. And one thing to really remember is that having a child is not a biological process. It is a deeply spiritual process that has biological components. And so when we talk about bringing a child, having a child, we need to first remember that none of us would be here if not for a ridiculously magical and miraculous moment between our parents and the light force of the Creator, right? That's one of the most important things to remember as well, because, ironically or paradoxically, there are people who get pregnant that don't want to be pregnant, or they might, maybe there's an unfortunate night, a series of events that happen one night, and somebody becomes pregnant and they don't want to bring a child into the world. And that's not what this is about. But the point is that it comes so easily to some people and so fraught and wrought with challenge for others. It cannot be simply a biological process. And we've all met people who adopted and then conceived, right? After many years of trying to have a child naturally, they adopt or they do something else, and then somehow their body cooperates, so to speak. So we want to make sure that we understand that anything, obviously with the soul, but if you're working on a business, if you're working on if you're trying to create anything in your life, the first and most important step is to understand it is not all up to you. It is not all in your hands. The light force of the Creator is actually the secret sauce that makes any of this happen. So that's why one of the things that we learn about in Kabbalah is conception, the concept of conception and the importance, the significance of that moment, which ironically, what most of us don't feel or know when it happens. But the idea that at the seed level, and I'm turning the mic over to you and I'm just setting you up and then I'm going to hit the ball into your court. Our consciousness at the seed level of anything is actually the most important tool of all.
Well,
Now you're going to argue with me?
Thank you for hosting me. No, I'm not going to argue. I do want to say that so many times we hear it from different people and different sayings around the same thing, that timing is everything. And actually, Kabbalistically, timing is part of divine inspiration. What's divine inspiration? Is being able to say the right words or do the right thing at the right time and at the right place. So if the timing is a bit off, even if you said the right thing or did the right thing, and even if your consciousness was amazing and the timing is off, by the way, if your consciousness is really amazing, most of the chances the timing will not be off. But if the timing, the ingredient of the timing is a bit off, it can affect the whole thing. And the Zohar, the main text of Kabbalah, in the section of Acharei Mot, talks about that there are windows in time, not only in the year, not only in the month, not only in the week, and not only in the day, but even in the terms of hours. There are hours in the day that if you want to give birth, if you try to conceive a business, submitting an important application, making a trade, going out to a dinner or an important conversation that you want to have with someone that is important in your life, and conceiving a child, there are, as King Solomon said, for everything there is a season. And they made out of this also a song, right? But first of all is the timing. So one of the things you want to do when you approach conceiving a child or conceiving a business or conceiving a new process in your life is, first of all, figure out, educate yourself about the timing. What day of the week should it be? Or what night of the week should it be? What should be the hour? What should be... it's really coming down, as many people say, the creator is in the small details. And once you figure out the timing, then you can think about the consciousness. Then you can also have the understanding, as the Zohar, the main text of Kabbalah, teaches us, all the beginnings are hard. What does it mean? It doesn't have to be physically hard, but in order to bring life to this world, to the physical reality, part of the energy of exchange, whether it's giving birth to a child or giving birth to a business, there has to be concealment. As many times the concealment is in a form of pain. Like when an individual gets out of their home, they get out of the house, they have to get dressed to conceal their beautiful body. That it won't be too much energy for the people, and anyway, you don't want to get arrested by not being fully dressed. Now, if you go, let's say, to the beach, you go to the ocean, you're going to wear a bathing suit, and that's the appropriate concealment for that space. But if you go to your office in a bathing suit, most of the chances it's not the appropriate, unless, I don't know, maybe you model in bathing suits, but it's most of the chances it's not the appropriate concealment. And certain occasions, like a wedding, a dinner, there's a certain dress code, certain and clothing. So one of the key Kabbalistic concepts is whatever it is that you want to bring to this life, you want to conceive, you want to give birth to, there has to be the appropriate concealment. So let's say for a couple that is trying to bring a soul to this physical world, and as a side note, whatever my beautiful wife shared, just to keep in mind that the soul never dies, and the soul is actually never born. It's just entering, and sometimes also exiting different realms. So entering the physical reality, we perceive it as birth. And living the physical reality, we consider it as passing, or some people might call it death, which I choose to disagree. But the idea behind it is really to inject the consciousness and to be ready for the same level of concealment that creates the revelation. So if a couple wants to bring a child to this world, for the sake of the example, and they try in a lot, and it's challenging, part of the reason, the potential reason why it's taking longer is because there's a beautiful soul, a beautiful light that is about to be revealed, and there's the appropriate equivalent. That's my next favorite word, my first favorite word, the equivalent concealment. And when we appreciate the concealment, that this is also from the Creator, that the Creator has put all of this intention in effort, production, to create that concealment because there's so much light that is about to be revealed. Just as we came in for today, we had an interesting concealment with our car. And now it gets me to think, wow, like, I don't even know how much light is about to be revealed through this. But when we appreciate the concealment, we hasten the process of the revelation to take place rather than feeling overwhelmed.
I think that a big part of that conversation is also, why are we trying to manifest what we're trying to manifest? So whether it's to bring a child to the world, to start a project, a business, to try a new career or a new relationship, the Kabbalists will always say, well, what's your intention?
Yeah, why are you doing this?
Why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
And if we're honest with ourselves, we can all use an upgrade when it comes to intention. The baseline for most people's intention is no intention. And that's a choice as well. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that sometimes processes can be, as you said, concealed or blocked, is because the intention was on such a level that the actual manifestation not happening is protection. Right. And I can give you a really funny example. I know somebody who years ago bought a house. Why did she buy a house? Well, let's put it this way. She wanted to sell the house, and it wouldn't sell. And it was priced competitively. She'd even lowered the price. She tried different real estate agents, but for whatever reason, it wouldn't sell. So we had a conversation, as Kabbalah teachers often have with their students. And we talked about, why did she buy the place? Where was she at? What moved her to buy the place? She wasn't living there. And she said, well, if I'm honest, she had received a large amount of money in a divorce settlement, and she was afraid that she would lose that money. So she used the money to buy the place, the house.
So the seed was fear.
And we all do things like this. I don't want to, she's probably listening, and I know that she's excited simply because her lesson is going to save a lot of people a lot of chaos by me sharing it here. But by doing something out of fear, by doing anything out of lack, and lack can be fear, worry, pain, guilt, shame, pride, control, judgment, anything that we're doing not from a place of growth, expansion, elevation, sharing, anything positive, what we're doing is basically, it's negative. I'm going to put it that very simply. It's a negative thing to do if you're doing it out of, now maybe you can say, okay, I'm angry. Slapping the person who made me angry is a negative thing to do. Obviously. Isn't it funny that I'm now saying buying a house out of fear is a negative thing to do? But the bottom line is any seed planted out of fear
or out of lack,
or out of lack. Let's use the word lack, not just fear. Any seed that's planted out of lack, and you want to relate it to now bringing a child to the world, how many people have a child to save a marriage? How many people have a child, again, sometimes it happens unintentionally, which deserves its whole hour to itself. But the idea that so much of what we do is not only mindless, meaning I wasn't thinking about why, I don't have a particular intention.
Even as a makeup after a fight.
Right. So there's many different reasons why something won't manifest or wouldn't manifest because of lack. Now, going back to the house example, I know everybody's holding their breath trying to hear what happened. The real work was unearthing that fear, right? Nothing, if the money goes away, it wasn't hers to begin with, right? Nobody can take away from you something that isn't yours to begin with. If it gets, quote unquote, taken away, it wasn't yours anyway. But also, of course, back then, we can all say, well, when I made that choice, I wasn't as spiritual as I am now. I didn't know as much as I knew now. I was doing my best. Absolutely. We're not angry at the person that did anything out of lack in the past. We're not punishing them or giving them the business. What we're simply saying is if I can work on that fear no longer exists, and then the house can be released to its next rightful owner. And the story is that's what happened by working on not doing anything out of fear, because it's not about the house. The house is just the lucky catalyst that got to bring that new consciousness to this person's intention and hopefully to all of yours. By uprooting the seed of fear, it transformed the whole process. The place was sold. The timing was amazing. It helped manifest even more beautiful things in the long run. But the realization is, first and foremost, anything that you are trying to bring into being, anything that you're trying to manifest, if it's stuck, if something is challenging about it, the first thing to do, and by the way, you may be listening and having a challenge with a child. We can talk about that for 30 seconds too. If you are having a challenge with your child, and I don't want to downplay it, but there are very typical challenges that are par for the course when you're raising a child, right? Social challenges, kids picking on each other. My kid doesn't want to eat their vegetables. My kid doesn't want to go to sleep on time. You can visit all the parenting books to see the range of typical parenting challenges. Obviously, there's some children that present unique and special challenges. If that is the case, and I'm not giving anybody a quick fix solution or passing judgment on anyone, go. The beginning of the work to transform the situation is to look at what was my intention in bringing this child to the world. Where was I at? What was my intention not only before they were conceived, but the Kabbalists actually designate conception to 3 years old in the same category. So look at where were you? What was going on with you? How were you operating from conception to 3 years old? And work on that, and you will see transformation in your child right now, in your dynamic. I'm not saying that whatever's going on with them will disappear magically, but it will shift because you're going back to the seed and working on the seed rather than the fruit.
And to add to what you shared, it's really one of the ways to protect ourselves from losing the connection to the seed level in terms of consciousness. The Kabbalists call it Keter. Keter is the first emanation out of the 10 emanations, the seed level. Our teacher Rav Berg shares with us, continuously you want to ask throughout the day, before anything that you do, why am I doing it? Not from a place of a victim or...
right. Before we talked about retroactively, now you're talking about current situations,
yes.
How to plant the best seed.
Yes. Thank you. So it's really, every time you ask why, because you really want to inject consciousness, the why stops the robotic consciousness. And I have a crazy story to share about it. I don't know if I should share it, but it's one of my colleagues shared with me about a certain Israeli scientist that in his previous in the past he was a hacker that the banks used to pay him, a genius used to pay him to connect with security and to breach security, to check that the security of the bank is good enough, strong enough. And eventually he left this and he became a neuroscientist. And one of the really like researching the brain in a beautiful way, even though the brain, there's a limitation for something that tries to research itself. But one of the experiments that he did is that he took a group of individuals, each one in their turn, put them in a room, gave them like 300 questions, and the answers, they choose. One button was yes, one button was no. And at the end, they had no interruptions, nothing, just them and the questions. At the end, they went over the answers and they asked every individual, are you sure that you are the one that decided to choose here yes, here no? And they said, yes, I made a choice. They played, because there was a camera in the room, they played another camera, another footage, at exactly the same time. There was another individual in another room that they did not hear or anything like that, and they had two drums. One drum is for yes, one drum is for no. And it was exactly just before the person would push the button yes or no, the other person would hit one of the drums randomly or not randomly, yes or no. And the person that pushed the buttons did exactly one-to-one, exactly what the drumming was dictating to them, without them knowing. And they were blown away. They thought that they are making the choice. So our teacher Rav Berg is sharing with us that most of the time humans are in robotic consciousness. The way to stop the robotic consciousness, one of the ways, is to continuously ask why. The moment you ask why, you interrupt the robotic sequence. Why? And then you encourage yourself to think. And our teacher Rav Berg gives us the example about an individual starting a business, and they had the intention, let's say, to make the world a better place, to support certain group of people through the business. And down the line, because they didn't ask enough why, they find themselves being busy with the color of the napkins in the conference room. Like they forgot completely why are they doing what they're doing. And that's the danger of disconnecting from the keter, from the seed level, by not asking why. So it's throughout the journey, throughout the day, to pause, what a pleasure, and inject the energy of the why.
I think that brings up another important point, which is it's never too late.
That's correct.
And there's different factors that the Kabbalists point to that help us understand the soul's process. What do I mean by that? You can look at, or I can use myself as an example, make it a little bit more personal. I was named after somebody who was murdered.
Ooh.
This goes back many years ago. I was named, not maliciously. You would think that that's a curse. It was a lovely person who died a premature death, family member. And we gave the same name to our dog when I was a kid. And the dog died a very ugly death as well. It was premature, mauled by coyotes in a neighbor's backyard. And not long before that, my parents had started studying Kabbalah. And we learned about the power of one's name. So it couldn't have been a coincidence that, I mean, what the Kabbalists teach is that when you name a child after someone, meaning you're not saying I want to name them Lucy because Lucy's a pretty name, but when you say I'm naming them, I also had a dog named Lucy, by the way, but that's not the name. Lucille Ball, for example. So what the parents are unknowingly doing is giving the child some of Lucille Ball's tikkun, right? Give my parents unknowingly and with very good intentions, unknowingly attached my soul to the soul of my great aunt who passed away. So needless to say, I had a name change. But the reality is that there's different factors that take place along the course of a person's life that can create limitation, but that can all be undone, that can all be transformed. And I think that that's something really important. If you're sitting listening to this episode and saying, oh, well, when I had my kid, this was the situation, or, oh, when I bought the house, this was, meaning it's never too late. The Kabbalist, there's a lot of teachings around why things might be a certain way, but there's even more teachings on how to transform situations, on how to elevate poor decisions from the past, on how to, it's not about getting rid of the situation, although that may be the human tendency is to want to get rid of anything that's uncomfortable or difficult. Everything in our lives has a purpose. And there is a reason that my parents chose to name me that. There's a reason that I went 16 or 17 years with that soul connection. And then there's a reason why we were enlightened and we had the opportunity to change it. So wherever you are in the process of your birthing, whatever it is you want to create, whatever your intention is to create, you can change it. And that's one of the most important lessons I think that Kabbalah provides us with, is that it's never too late. So even if a relationship is in a bad place, it's not, if you don't want it to be, it's not too late. And I know that kind of contradicts something we spoke about a few weeks ago, but it really, the idea that everything is exactly how it's supposed to be means that every moment of my life is all set up to push me toward a more elevated place. Even the parts of my life that I'm not proud of, that I was operating from lack during, and everything we spoke about till now. So the bottom line, I think, of this week's energy and the lessons we're trying to share as a summary is that, yes, there are systems and tools and technologies to help you have the most abundant and flourishing garden of life, right? If all the different things in your life, you can call them plants or living entities, and Kabbalah provides us with the most beautiful tools and practices to have a flourishing garden for everything in our lives. We don't always know. I read a parenting book by Wendy Nagel, and she said there, you know, when your child is born, it's like getting a package of seeds that are in an unlabeled package. You don't know what kind of seeds, what's going to grow, but you can only make the best decisions as you can as you go along to help cultivate those seeds. The same is true with everything in our lives, and the wisdom of Kabbalah. And one of the reasons we do these episodes week after week is to provide our listeners with the wisdom and tools to create change, to say, okay, you know, these are tomatoes. I thought they were cucumbers. How can I make the best tomatoes right now? And where can I get the best cucumbers later? Meaning nothing is fixed. I actually spoke to a student, and maybe we can end on this, and you can more than welcome to add to it. I spoke to somebody recently who said, well, if everything is predestined, blah, 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 blah. And I said, why do you think everything is predestined? And she said, well, don't we say God has a plan? And we had this beautiful conversation about how nothing is predestined. I mean, there may be the twists and turns of life, the variety of possibilities are already mapped out, but you're the one who's choosing which possibility you're working with at any given moment. And the moment you realize you don't want the possibility you're in, you can change it. The best ones to change, the best places to work on, are the ones where you think you can't change it. The ones where you think it's impossible or there's nothing I can do. The reality is that's what the wisdom of Kabbalah is. It's to teach us that every moment is a choice. And here's the wisdom and the tools to help you make the most elevated choices, growing constantly. Every moment is exactly what you need, because every moment, whether you're miserable or you're ecstatic, is designed to get you to your next level. Final thoughts.
So one of the great Kabbalists, Rav Nachman of Breslev, the great grandson of the Kabbalist, the Baal Shem Tov, says, if you believe you can damage, then you have to believe that you can fix.
That's beautiful.
And this is like a great mantra for those of us that might think it's too late, it's done, because one of the thoughts that the opponent is trying to bring to the individual is that this cannot be undone. It's too late. It's permanent. And I mean, even for myself, I can share with you that I was named after my grandfather, that later on I found out that he was walking in the street and they were doing some construction, and a live wire fell and electrocuted him, and he died on the spot. And for many years, until I came to the Kabbalah Centre, I was afraid from being electrocuted. I even got electrocuted, I think it was like 3 times by the time I got to the center. I was literally afraid to plug even something into the electricity. And now, having the wisdom that our teachers share with us in the center, I can share with you that it's really an amazing thing to have the technology for the soul. And the Kabbalists give us different aspects of that technology to literally reverse, change, upgrade pretty much everything. Now, it might be that physically that thing is not changing, but your perception about it is going to change. And that is strong enough, good enough, to make the shift that is happening. In other words, the business might turn in a different direction, or your child might grow in a certain way that you did not expect, but by you upgrading your consciousness, the way you perceive things, you see that all the way it was only light, it was only positive. And yes, God does have a plan, and the plan is the best. And it's going to turn out for the best as we are upgrading and transforming the way we see things. So when we choose to see it as light, and this is for the best, even though right now I don't even see how it's going to turn for the best, but I trust the Creator, because I know that He can do anything, and I know everything is through Him and from Him. He is the source, and therefore I know it's going to turn to the best, because He wants my best interest. He has my best interest with Him, and therefore it's going to turn out for the best. And by me shifting the consciousness, that's how the reality is going to change. And I just like to say one more thing, that the great Baal Shem Tov, also the great-grandfather of the one we mentioned before, of Nachman of Breslev, says that when you are in concealment, let's say you planted a seed, you manifested it, it didn't turn out exactly how you wanted, but the concealment, remember, is equivalent to the revelation that is about to take place later on, and by you appreciating it, you are hastening the process. The Baal Shem Tov says, when you remember in the time of concealment, when you don't see the light, when you remember, I know this is coming from the light. I know the light is there. It's like you playing hide and seek with the Creator. And you're playing hide and seek with your child. You say to your child, I know you're there. I don't see you, but I know you're there. And then you hear like a giggle in their spot. So the moment you are saying, I know this is light, I know this is positive, I know it's going to turn out for the best, I might not see it right now, but I know it's going to turn out for the best. It's a matter of time, and it's going to be quicker until the light of the Creator cannot hold itself back, and it's going to be revealed to you in the greatest way.
Thank you.
With pleasure.
Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find us on weeklyenergyboost.com, our website, where we showcase all the things we talk about on each episode and what we want our listeners to learn more about. You can also click the donate button at weeklyenergyboost.com to support our podcast. And as always, like, rate, share, and review. Like, rate, review, and share, whichever order you prefer, so that we reach more people and reveal more of this great light in the world. Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.